Hulk Hogan is problematic, and I've waited about half a day to digest the news and to give my thoughts and to try and give something considered and measured, and as we talk about Hulk Hogan. But it is problematic. So Hulk Hogan did a lot for wrestling, let's be clear, and wrestling did a lot for him. But he also did a lot of other stuff that did not necessarily make him, on the outside at least, a good human being. So you have to consider that. And, you know, I've often said separate the art from the artist. So let's try and do that, but also acknowledge, when we're talking about Hulk Hogan, you've got to acknowledge the whole package. The racism, the doubling down on the racism, the not apologising properly, the almost withdrawal of apology, the stuff with the unions in the 80s and 90s, the blocking of wrestlers' things. You know, if Hulk Hogan got his way, we would have no Undertaker right now. You know, there's a load of stuff. They're not putting people over. You know, having the WrestleMania 9, all of that sort of stuff. Shawn Michaels not having the match back with him. So there's problems, but also, look, is Hulk Hogan on my Mount Rushmore? Absolutely not. I don't like the man. I never liked the man as a wrestler. I hated the fact that he won all the time when I was a kid. However, in an objective Mount Rushmore, of course Hulk Hogan's in it. Hulk Hogan is probably the numero uno in it. And he's arguably, alongside Vince McMahon, another problematic man, the most influential person in or one of the most influential people in pro wrestling. So, my first memories of Hulk Hogan was when I was a 9. He, as I said, won all the time. I was not a huge fan. My first WrestleMania that I watched was WrestleMania 6. It felt like the biggest match ever. 2 huge baby faces. Of course, I didn't know what a baby face was then. It was just goodies and baddies. And I was so shocked and delighted when Ultimate Warrior beat him. And I would probably say, in my head, that's Hulk Hogan's second greatest match. Because he didn't have a lot of great matches, but he main evented WrestleMania after WrestleMania. He was in the Rocky films. He had his own films, questionable, but he did have his own films. He was huge. Everyone knew who Hulk Hogan was. You didn't have to know what wrestling was. And as wrestling became big in the UK in the sort of early 90s, Hulk Hogan was the biggest star that came over, and he helped massively. He helped with WWF as it was at the time. So we can't deny that legacy. You can't deny his thing. His in-ring wasn't great. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. I mean, maybe they will because people are feeling sentimental. But in terms of a icon, in terms of everything that he was, and then he did, you know, last few years in WWE weren't great. We've mentioned briefly WrestleMania 9. That is one of the worst. It's probably the worst WrestleMania and the worst WrestleMania ending, definitely. People moaning about WrestleMania 41 ending, go and check the WrestleMania 9 ending out. That's what you need to do. Ironically, both in Vegas, so let's hope for WrestleMania 42 and an ending that everyone likes. But he did have a second win, and a fantastic second win. The heel turn is up there with John Cena's heel turn, and for me, Shawn Michaels' heel turn as the best 3 heel turns in wrestling. It was the shock of Hulk Hogan. Of Hulk Hogan turning on Randy Savage, joining the Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. That was huge. And the NWO had a great initial run. It obviously got ridiculous. WCW went out of business and all of that. But he had a great run. Again, probably not putting people over. You know, he lost to Goldberg, brought Ultimate Warrior back just so he could beat him in one of the worst matches ever. And then he comes back to WWE when WCW goes bust. Vince brings him back. And I would say, having said that he hasn't had any great matches, in my top 10 is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan from WrestleMania 18. It's crazy still that it wasn't the main event, and it obviously didn't help the main event at the time. But credit where credit is due, it was clash of an era. It was one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history. It still is one of the biggest matches, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Insane crowd reaction in the Sky Dome in Toronto. So yeah, he had that. Then he had the sort of runner. He had a match with Vince the next year. Had the match with Shawn Michaels again, not great. You know, supposed to win the first one, lose the second one, didn't put him over. Same with Randy Orton. I mean, that time Randy Orton was the legend killer and all of this stuff, and he beat Randy Orton. Now only Hogan can do that. But yeah, so Hulk Hogan, massive impact on the world of wrestling. Problems outside of wrestling. doubling down on those problems outside of wrestling. So I've tried to make this articulated, probably not done that very well, but at least a fair take on where Hulk Hogan's legacy is. Obviously WWE Hall of Famer, but we can't ignore the outside stuff. And I think I've seen people saying, oh, you know, everyone makes mistakes. Yeah, but then they apologize, and especially when you're in the public eye. And I think the racism is probably the worst stuff, but this man was supposedly the locker room leader in WWE and WWF at the time, and he didn't do great things. He didn't lead. He didn't use his power. He abused his power. So that needs to be considered too. But, you know, he's gone now. No doubt there'll be a great video package that WWE put together and show on SmackDown tonight. And it's Hulk Hogan. So what are your thoughts on Hulk Hogan?